Matt, looking back at the European campaign first, do you think, I know it's fine margins, was there a chance lost?
Probably was, yeah. I think, look, big picture, I think we were clear right from the start of the season that our priority is Pro14, especially after last year, obviously with the disappointment of missing out on the Champions Cup. So, you know, from day one since I've joined here, it was about, you know, regaining our credibility in the Pro14, trying to get Champions Cup rugby, and then using the Challenge Cup, you know, for two things. At home, we've gone pretty strong. I think the Worcester game was certainly a missed opportunity. We could have gone to Pau then with a realistic chance of getting in the quarterfinals. But then our away games, if we're honest, I think we blooded some youngsters. And probably go back to my experience at the Blues last year. Obviously, went on to win it. It was exactly the same there. So at home we were pretty strong. Away, and you see now they're probably reaping the rewards from it, is people like Kieran Azarati and Dylan Lewis and Seb Davis and Jared Evans and Thomas Williams and Owen Lane, Garen Smith. They were the boys that got blooded away in, I think it was Lyon and Toulouse last year. We weren't fortunate, but fortunately for the Blues last year, we come away with some wins away from home and managed to get in the quarterfinals. But it becomes a priority, I think, if we're honest, when you get to the quarterfinals or the last round. So look, we are disappointed, and especially probably after the Worcester performance, but hopefully we'll reap the rewards from the likes of Tian and Harry Morgan and Will Griffiths. Kai Evans has been blooded in the competition this year down the line. So it's getting that balance, because I think obviously with the you know, the A-League Almost Cup competition this season, they've got some meaningful rugby, but it's not been around some of the senior players. So, you know, Harry to play alongside you know, James King, and that's a lot more valuable for young players. So look, if we had a massive depth of squad, you 100% you go after both, but I think it's just getting the balance right, really.
When you hear, I know Stuart Barnes has been quite vocal, a few people post results on the weekend about the regional games, slamming it. Do you worry about it when you see no teams through to the latter stages? Not really. Look,
I think there's a lot of, it's very reactive. You know, last year the Scarlets were in the semi-final of the Heineken Cup, the Blues won the Challenge Cup, and people were writing a different story, and it was the English clubs that wouldn't get in there. I think what everyone's after is some consistency, is to have regular knockout rugby for our regional teams, yeah, as the Irish teams are probably doing year in, year out. If you look at the Scottish teams, this year both into the quarterfinals, but in previous years Edinburgh have been nowhere near. It's, you know, hopefully it's a little bit of a one-off, and it's beyond my knowledge. Obviously there's things going on in the background in the Welsh game at the moment with Project Reset and what have you. But you know, as far as we're concerned as coaches, it's just trying to, you know, do the best we can to make us as competitive as we can, whilst trying to stick to our objectives of blooding youngsters and you know, just getting that balance, really.
You look at Ireland, you mentioned consistency. They are consistent, aren't they? Year in, year out,
yeah.
Going through. Is that where we could and should be aiming for that consistency?
Yeah, I think so. It would be great if you know, on a regularly 3 of the 4 regions were getting into the Champions Cup. Once you're in the Champions Cup, I think if you're honest, you are probably in the lap of the gold a little bit as well. You can get, depending on what draw you get, there's so many variables, and sometimes you can't control how strong other teams are. So, like from my experience, my 3rd year in the Pro14, it's getting so much more competitive. Like the Italian teams are more competitive. Obviously you've got South African teams in it. Glasgow and Edinburgh now are very, very competitive. Connaught this year with a change of coach have had a spike. So, you know, it's certainly not getting any easier. And I just think Welsh rugby as a whole, there's a real challenge to make sure that, you know, we keep up, and, you know, not just keep up, try and, you know, push ahead if we can. But I think over the next you know, months, and hopefully something happens there with funding and what have you. But
you mentioned that the Pro14 had to be a priority, and Glasgow, the next game, them losing out in Italy over Christmas, that the A conference is looking, you know, it's up for grabs at the top position.
Yeah, it is. It's it looked like at one stage that you know, Glasgow, Munster may, you know, push away from the pack, and there was going to be maybe a three-way fight with us, the Blues and Connaught. But as you said, probably over the last couple of weeks, it's condensed a little bit. So there's more of maybe a five-way arm wrestle now. Before that, I think Glasgow had won 10 games on the trot. They then played Edinburgh and Treviso, and they've, you know, had some mixed results. And obviously it's that time of year as well. We're going to be out without a number of players because of the Six Nations, and no one gets hit as hard as Glasgow. So.
Are you having anyone back? Do you know if there's anyone coming back at all?
No, I don't think we are. No, not as far as I know.
In terms of Nicky Smith, in terms of his injury, how far along the way is he? I know he's
Yeah, I don't think he's too far away. I think they're hoping that he's going to be available maybe mid Six Nations, but I couldn't give you a accurate date.
And in terms of lessons learned from previous November campaign, do you feel the boys who stepped in doing that?
Yeah, what I found is, and this again just from my experiences, is it's probably a little bit different from the Blues, and obviously I'm learning about the Pro14 as you go. Is the Blues have probably used 4 or 5, the Ospreys, and it's brilliant for the region and the players. We lose almost a team, so obviously Scott Williams and Owen, and you know the list goes on. So I feel it's during the November period, the team that stepped in, really good win against Connaught, and you could see real progression as the weeks went along. I'll be honest with you, that was part of last week as well. So we wanted those players to get some almost a game out in Pau to build us into this next block. So that was some of the kind of planning behind it as well. But yeah, I've been, you know, they've trained really well. It was actually a very good performance second half out in Pau. So hopefully, if the planning goes right, we can kick on from how we finished off in Pau.
Yeah. Is it now, would the season be deemed a success or failure on the basis on the back of you making a playoff? Is that
yeah, I think I don't think it's like if we'd have progressed in the Challenge Cup, it would, for me, it would have been an added bonus. Right. We've always, so the objectives haven't changed from, you know, they won't change from June to May. You know, we want to restore our credibility in the Pro14, and as we've talked about, you can see from the how competitive our pool is that, you know, it's probably going to go down to the final weekends.
Yeah. And in terms of availability, Keelan, how is he?
Yeah, he's okay. He pulled out in the warm up last week, Keelan. He was feeling his hamstring, so it's nothing major. So he's roundabout for selection. He may not make this week, but it's certainly not long term.
It's a really funny period this next couple of months, isn't it? You've just got games dotted around. What do you do differently?
It's a balance really, because obviously there's a game this weekend and then there's nothing for 2 weeks. So it's a chance to give players a rest as well. It's been, you know, a pretty, especially with the derbies in Europe, it's a real tough period during the season. So obviously we'll play in Glasgow on Friday night, and then the boys will get a week off, and then they'll come in for 2 weeks to prepare for the next game. So it is a little bit stop-start. It's probably probably tougher for the supporters during this time, because you kind of get lost between Six Nations and Pro14, and obviously when they do come, a lot of the internationals aren't on the field. So it is a tough period, but it's also very challenging as a squad and a coaching staff, because every point's vital. So going away to Glasgow on Friday, you know, derbies are finished, Challenge Cup's finished. You know, we want to go up there and be competitive and try and come back with something. And then obviously we got Ulster and Connaught and Munster. So it's just making sure we pick up as many points as we can. So when the Six Nations is finished, the internationals come back to integrate, we can really attack the back end of the season.
How's it going to work with the under-20s? Are they going to be prioritising regional games when picked?
I think it'll probably be on an individual basis. So, you know, I think the priority at under-20s is always making sure they have game time. So you know, if there's maybe a guaranteed starter for a regional club, they'll play regional, but you know, if they're going to be round about the squad, then they'll play for the 20. So I think that's more, you know, on a case-by-case basis, really.
When you look at this period, you sit there going, please not Connacht, please not Connacht, please not Connacht. Probably not Ulster too much. You want Edinburgh, Glasgow.
Yeah, look, it's obviously we were probably saying that last time, and we had Connacht and ended up with a bonus point victory. So it's that shows how competitive the our pool is, really. So look, I think we've got enough good players here that whoever we get, we want to go out and be competitive. Like, if you're honest, obviously you look for the clubs who have lost a lot of players, but you know, Leinster losing 17, 18 players doesn't seem to have much effect on them. So you know, it varies year from year, really.
Project Reset seems to be dragging on, doesn't it? At what point does that become a bigger issue than it is now?
I'll be perfectly honest with you. For me, it sounds like a James Bond film. I don't really know what's going. I don't really take any notice of Project Reset. I'm busy coaching. That's for people who've got a lot more responsibility outside of the game than I have to worry about. So I turn up and try and coach and try and make us competitive every weekend, and then hopefully when there's some clarity comes back about what's happening, then we'll deal with it then. But I don't really stress about it, to be honest.
Mark, can I see Luke Morgan? See, first senior rugby. There's a lot gone on from this season in during the autumn. Obviously not selected during the Six Nations.
Yeah.
How do you viewed his progression this year?
Well, I think, and it's we have these conversations with Luke. Actually, he kind of took off. It was unbelievable that he'd gone from, you know, not playing a 15s game, I think, for 3 or 4 years, and within 2 months he's playing in the Principality Stadium in front of 70,000 people. So unfortunately that was never going to just keep on that trajectory. There's going to be, you know, ups and downs, and he's probably levelled out a little bit now. His graph, if you like, his progression, but that was always going to happen. He's still playing really well. He's training very well. I think the really good thing for me with Luke is he's not become bogged down with the tactical side of 15s. His instinct as a sevens player is still there, and I've had it before with players. Sometimes they come to 15s and you try and change them as a character, and they start worrying about all the technicalities and the shape of the game, and they actually forget what they're good at. Luke's a breath of fresh air in terms of he goes out and he wants to beat people. So I regularly remind him is just view the game like sevens. If you get the ball, try and beat the first man. Whatever happens after that is a bonus for us. Obviously, he's got to work on his aerial stuff and his backfield play and things like that. But you know, he's still you know, a real threat with the ball. And hopefully, you know, over the next couple of months, he can show the national selectors that he's still there or thereabouts.
I'll ask a housekeeping question after finish. Anscombe, his name's been linked to the region. Anything in that, first of all?
Probably the same answer as Project Reset. I don't get involved massively.
Secondly, obviously he's a player you've worked with well, and a player you wouldn't not like to have working with again, probably. He's a class act, isn't he? He's
a class act, yeah. But I'll probably deal with what players we've got. Sam Davis has been a class act for us as well. His the growth in Sam, genuinely, over the last 4 or 5 months since I've worked from him, has been unbelievable. Very, very good trainer. Especially during these periods, he leads a team unbelievably well, tactically, in sessions, sat in these meeting rooms asking very, you know, good questions and giving good advice to the other players. So look, I'm really happy with Sam. Obviously Gareth's a good, very good player as well.
I can just ask you, obviously, just go back a couple of weeks to Worcester. There's a lot made of the kicking game, that especially in that second half.
Yeah.
A lot of frustration from supporters.
Yeah.
What was your view on that?
Oh look, it was. I'll be honest with you, I think Brad answered this last week actually. Against the Scarlets and the Blues, we did have a game plan that was focused around trying to keep the ball in the air against the Blues because they're so good at jackling when the ball's on the floor, and it worked. And you know, my primary job here is to win games of rugby. If we can do that by playing brilliant rugby, then obviously that's what we want. Scarlet's was fairly similar. Worcester, probably just how the game progressed. We got 2 points up, and looking through the kicks in that game, because obviously you could see the sense of frustration. We were frustrated as coaches as well. There's probably 5 or 6 kicks that you could take out, but look, we were 2 points up. There was 4 minutes left. It was a little bit greasy, and did we overkick a little bit? Yeah, but I could also show you some weeks where we overpass a little bit. So it's something that we're working on as a coaching group. But I'll be honest with you, it was something that I thought we needed to improve here as well, was a kicking game, because I think this time last year people were frustrated that we were a little bit lateral in our attack. So I'd have been foolish not to incorporate a little bit of a kicking game as well. Do we sometimes go too far with that? Yeah, we do. But over time, with good recruitment and good coaching, and hopefully we can play a style of rugby that the supporters enjoy watching. I think the start of the season, we played some really good rugby. Look, there's been a couple of derbies and one game against Worcester where maybe there was a little bit of frustration, but we're working hard to try and get the balance right. Really.